Alrighty then, what do you say, what do you know? Trying something new. I'm streaming from my Boxcast to MAGA Institute on Facebook Live, and then I'm going to upload it to my YouTube channel because Facebook doesn't allow you to stream simultaneously to both. It will also, all videos, the last video got cut off by YouTube, the beginning got cut off, and it's been doing that sometimes. All videos will always be available in their entirety on patriotuprising.tv, so you can always check them out that way. Wanted to come on tonight, and wanted to come on, quite frankly, to a bigger audience because this is really important. I want to break down the president's response to the constitutionally defective articles of impeachment that the House finally brought over to the Senate. Now, why did they finally bring them over to the Senate? Well, I think for two reasons. First of all, and most importantly, you know, people are out there, I don't trust Mitch McConnell and Murkowski and Mitt Romney. They're gonna stab the president in the back. No, knock it off. Mitch McConnell has been a stalwart supporter of and defender of the president. Why? Mitch sees the quality of the judicial nominees that the president has been sending to the Senate. 180 of them. And Mitch has been running those bad boys right through. And when the Democrats try to say, oh, you can't have any judicial nominees for a president that's impeached, Mitch said, yeah, no. We're gonna still have votes on nominees. So pound sand. You know, guys like Greg Guidry down in the Fifth Circuit, guys like Justice Kavanaugh. He loves beer. Remember him? And sorry, that was a call that just came through. Not gonna take it. Not now, because I'm talking to you. So, Mitch put a little, well, we had Missouri Senator Hawley come in and submit a bill, file a bill in the Senate to have the Senate dismiss out of hand the Articles of Impeachment if Nancy didn't bring them over. So Nancy had to bring them over. Now, the second reason that we had to wait over a month for the constitutionally defective articles of impeachment were that she had to have the custom-made, custom-engraved bullet pens for the signing ceremony, like it was some big trade deal. You know, the best meme I saw, I posted it, tale of two people. Nancy uses $32,000 pens to sign constitutionally defective articles of impeachment. Donald Trump uses $1.99 Sharpie to sign a $2 billion trade deal with China. You know, despite this, look at what this president has accomplished. This president has accomplished more in his first 3 years than any other two-term president has accomplished in both terms. And he's been facing a 250-knot headwind. He's been facing a Cat 6 hurricane. And for those of you who don't know, there is no Cat 6. Cat 5 is as high as it goes. He's been facing a Cat 6 hurricane. And he still, in 3 years, has more accomplishments than any other president in 8. I would posit that he has more than any eight-year two-term presidents. Two-term presidents. 4 terms total. 16 years. He's got more accomplishments in 3 years than any other 16-year period. And I would include Ronald Reagan with that. I loved Reagan. First vote I ever cast was for Reagan in 80. I worked for him on campus. It was one of the great highlights of my life to be able to cast my first vote for Ronald Wilson Reagan. I was so borderline despondent when I saw Marine One, no longer Marine One, when I saw the Marine Corps helicopter take off from the east side of the Capitol as we were on the west side for the inauguration, and you just saw his hand waving out the window. I got choked up, and my girlfriend said, "Why? What's going on?" I said, "I don't know if we will ever see a president like that again in our lifetime." And sure enough, here we are. As much as I loved Reagan, I love what Trump has done for the country. He's done even more for the country than Reagan did. Reagan faced a pretty stiff headwind with Tip O'Neill, and he got a lot done as well. But there were a lot of things that could have been done better. There were a lot of things that more could have been done. But I think all in all, Reagan's presidency was a rousing success. But Trump's even ahead of where Reagan was. So it's funny that people are going splody over Mitch McConnell. I'm going to get to that at the end, but first I want to read this response. Okay, now this is a legal document. Typically in a civil suit, you have a complaint. Joe Stevens stole $500 from me, or federal court $500,000 from me. He did it by fraud and deceit, and this is what the statute says, and this is the facts of everything that Joe did, and this is why Joe committed this crime, and this is why, Joe defrauded me, and this is why I must receive damages. And then Joe gets to file his answer. So in the civil realm, you have a complaint and you have an answer. Well, in impeachment, you have the Articles of Impeachment, which function much like a criminal indictment does. The House acts as both the grand jury that hands down an indictment, because the Articles of Impeachment don't amount to anything more than an indictment, as well as the trial court. They do the investigation, they take the testimony, they hand down the indictment, but then they also vote on it. So it's really like a conviction also at the trial court level. But then it moves over to the Senate, where it becomes like an appellate argument. Okay, so in the trial court, you're before a jury, and you have that the trial court is the trier of facts. Okay, so you have all the testimony and the facts and everything else. When you go to appeal, it's solely on the law. The appellate court doesn't decide any facts. That's for the trial court to do. What the appellate court does is rule on the law. Nope. The prosecution violated the Constitution, therefore the conviction needs to be overturned. Nope. The jury returned a verdict that was not in keeping with the law as written. So you've got to send it back down for a new trial. That's typically what's done, is remand for a new trial. Here, it's all kind of a mishmash, right? So the House, acting as the grand jury, and the trial court has got these articles of impeachment, and they bring them over to the Senate. And now they want the Senate to do the job that they didn't do. Because the previous two impeachments, the Clinton impeachment investigation spanned years. The Andrew Johnson impeachment investigation spanned months. The Trump impeachment investigation spanned weeks. Just a few weeks. Nope. You can't have any witnesses called. Nope. You can't ask any questions. Nope. No due process here. Nope. We get to set the agenda. Oh, and by the way, all of our evidence isn't evidence because nobody, we only have two people here that actually talked to the president about it, and both of them exonerate the president. So we're not going to go with that. We're going to go with how people felt about the call, how people assumed that the call went, that weren't on the call, and all of this blither, blather, blottily, bloogly, gobbly gook. And that's all it is. these articles of impeachment are constitutionally defective. Now, Timbo, why do you say that? I say that because impeachment is for high crimes and misdemeanors. And they didn't allege any crimes. No crimes, much less high crimes. Not even any misdemeanors. Nothing. No statutory violations have been alleged. Both of the Clinton articles of impeachment alleged statutory violations. Laws were broken, laws were cited. Now, let's get into the response now that we have the context. So here's, I can't decide which version I like better. The sped up version to yakety sax or the slowed down version to the Oompa Loompa song from Willy Wonka. They're both good in their own right. I listen to one and I laugh. I listen to the other and I laugh. I can't decide which one I like better, so I listen to them both. Okay. Response of the Honorable Donald, and I posted this last night so people could read it, and I hope you did your homework. I hope you read it before I talk about it. If you didn't, I'm going to read it again for you, and I'm going to decode as I read it. The Honorable Donald J. Trump, President of the United States, hereby responds. The articles of impeachment submitted by House Democrats are a dangerous attack on the rights of the American people to choose their president because they hate you, they hate me, they hate America. See? Says so. Right on the mug. This is a brazen and unlawful attempt to overturn the results of the 2016 election and interfere with the 2020 election. How do you know it's an attempt by them to interfere with the 2020 election? Number one, the 4 senators that are running for president refuse to recuse. Number two, they're accusing Trump of trying to rig the 2020 election. And we all know that they are nothing but a bunch of projecting lunatics. Overturn the results of the 2016 election and interfere with the 2020 election now just months away. The highly partisan and reckless obsession with impeaching the president, begun 19 minutes after he was sworn in, began the day he was inaugurated and continues to this day. The articles of impeachment are constitutionally invalid on their face. Now, this means that the Democrats have not established what's called a prima facie case. Prima facie means on its face. You look at it and you can see on its face, they have fallen flat on their face. They have not made any substantive allegations. If you were to take this into civil court, you would be deemed by the court to be a frivolous litigant. The case would be kicked and you would be barred from refiling. And if you did, you would be subject to penalties of contempt of court as a frivolous litigant. The articles of impeachment are constitutionally invalid on their face. They fail to allege any crime or violation of law whatsoever, let alone, quote-unquote, high crimes and misdemeanors as required by the Constitution. They are the result of a lawless process that violated basic due process and fundamental fairness. Nothing in these articles could permit even beginning to consider removing a duly elected president or warrant nullifying an election and subverting the will of the American people. Key phrase, could permit even beginning to consider. Meaning, buckle up, we're going to be moving for summary judgment. The articles of impeachment now before the Senate are an affront to the Constitution of the United States, our democratic institutions, and the American people. The articles themselves and the rigged process that brought them here are a transparently political act by House Democrats. They debase the grave power of impeachment and the solemn responsibility that power entails. They must be rejected. The House process violated every precedent and every principle of fairness governing impeachment inquiries for more than 150 years. Even so, all that House Democrats have succeeded in proving is that the president did absolutely nothing wrong. Now, I've heard a couple comments that, these are too conclusory, it's written too basic, it's not very scholarly. Exactly the point. This is written so that a grammar school student can understand it. Any 6th, 7th, 8th grader in American middle school can understand these articles of impeachment. They're written clearly. They're written directly to the people. These are not supposed to be a Supreme Court appellate brief. President Trump categorically and unequivocally denies each and every allegation in both articles of impeachment. The president reserves all rights and all available defenses. Okay, all rights means the right to ask for summary judgment, the right to make a motion to dismiss. President reserves all rights and all available defenses to the articles of impeachment. For the reasons set forth in this answer and in the forthcoming trial brief, the Senate must reject the articles of impeachment. Doesn't say when they must reject them, though. Reject them at the outset, reject them after conducting a trial. It's just saying you got to reject them. We're going to get to when later. Section 1, the first article of impeachment must be rejected. The first article fails on its face to state an impeachable offense, which is what I said immediately after the articles were published, voted on and published. I said there needs to be a motion to dismiss for failure to state the case. It alleges no crimes at all, let alone quote-unquote high crimes and misdemeanors required by the Constitution. In fact, it alleges no violation of law whatsoever. House Democrats' abuse of power claim would do lasting damage to the separation of powers under the Constitution. And that, I don't know why they said abuse of power, because that's not what the articles say. The articles don't say abuse of power. The articles say, obstruction of Congress is what they're talking about. Okay. This is the abuse of power. My mistake. Okay, the first article also fails on the facts because President Trump has not in any way abused the powers of the presidency, quote unquote. At all times, the president has faithfully and effectively executed the duties of his office on behalf of the American people. Okay, now there's, the GAO's got, we've got Trump now. The GAO came out and said he violated the law. We got the GAO report. Yeah, the GAO had 7 reports issued of Barack Obama violating the law. What'd you hear? Crickets. What the GAO didn't contemplate was that laws work together. They said he violated one law. They didn't consider that there was another law called the Purposes Act, 31 U.S. Code 1301 et sec. That says that all federal appropriations must be spent solely for the purposes for which the appropriation was made. So having a security review over foreign aid to make sure that the foreign aid is spent as the foreign aid was appropriated to be spent, appropriated by the Congress to be spent, making sure that it didn't fall down a corruption hole into Hunter Biden's pocket. Yeah, that's actually upholding the law. That's actually following the Purposes Act. The president doing that security review, placing the temporary hold, because remember it was released, and remember it was released for no action by Ukraine. In fact, Ukraine didn't even know it had been suspended. He was actually obeying the law. So, the Democrats have impeached President Trump for obeying the law. That's what Article 1 amounts to. At all times, the president has faithfully and effectively executed the duties of his office on behalf of the American people. The president's actions in the July 25, 2019 telephone call with President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine, the July 25th call, as well as on the earlier 21 April 2019 telephone call, the April 21 call, and in all surrounding and related events were constitutional, purely legal, completely appropriate, and taken in furtherance of our national interest. President Trump raised the important issue of burden sharing in the July 25 call, noting that other European countries such as Germany were not carrying their fair share. President Trump also raised the important issue of Ukrainian corruption. President Zelensky acknowledged these concerns on that same call. despite House Democrats having run an entirely illegitimate and one-sided process. Remember, no witnesses, not even any questions. You can't call witnesses, you can't even ask questions. Unless you say, "Mother, may I?" And Mother's going to say no. President Trump also raised the important issues of Ukrainian corruption. President Zelensky acknowledged these concerns in that same call, despite House Democrats having run an entirely illegitimate and one-sided process. Several simple facts were established that the president did nothing wrong. First, the transcripts of both the April 21 and July 25 calls make absolutely clear that the president did nothing wrong. Second, President Zelensky and other Ukrainian officials have repeatedly confirmed that the call was, quote, good and normal, that there was no quid pro quo, and that no one pressured them on anything. Third, the two individuals who have stated for the record that they spoke to the president about the subject actually exonerate him. Ambassador to the European Union Gordon Sondland stated that when he asked the president what he wanted from Ukraine, the president said, "I want nothing, I want nothing. I want no quid pro quo." Senator Rod Johnson reported that when he asked the president whether there was any connection between security assistance and investigations, the president responded, "No way, I would never do that." House Democrats ignore these facts and instead rely entirely on assumptions, presumptions, and speculation from witnesses with no first-hand knowledge. Their accusations are founded exclusively on inherently unreliable hearsay that would never be accepted in any court in our country. Fourth, the bilateral presidential meeting took place in the ordinary course and the security assistance was sent, all without the Ukrainian government announcing any investigations. Not only does the evidence collected by House Democrats refute each and every one of the factual predicates underlying the first article, the transcripts of the April 21 call and the July 25 call disprove what the article alleges. When the House Democrats realized this, Mr. Schiff created a fraudulent version of the July 25 call and read it to the American people at a congressional hearing without disclosing that he was simply making it all up. And this is where people are criticizing them for the direct, pointed language and not stating it more diplomatically, more statesmanlike, and more legal phraseology. That's not their intention here. They want people to know Adam Schiff simply made it all up. So what did they say? Adam Schiff simply made it all up. The fact that Mr. Schiff felt the need to fabricate a false version of the July 25 call proves that he and his colleagues knew that there was absolutely nothing wrong with that call. House Democrats ran a fundamentally flawed and illegitimate process that denied the president every basic right, including the right to have counsel present, the right to cross-examine witnesses, and the right to present evidence. Despite all this, the information House Democrats assembled actually disproves their claim against the president. The president acted at all times with full constitutional and legal authority and in our national interest. He continued his administration's policy of unprecedented support for Ukraine, including the delivery of lethal military aid that was denied to the Ukrainians by the prior administration. That's right. The prior administration sent blankets. They were asked when they were actually being invaded, when Crimea was actively being invaded by whom? By the Russians. You know how much the Democrats hate collusion with Russians. Why did they collude with Russia over the Crimean invasion? They asked for missiles, they got blankets. They asked Trump for missiles, guess what they got? They got missiles. If they come back and ask for blankets, you know what he's going to send them? He's going to send them blankets and more missiles. Obama left them hanging, left them defenseless to be invaded by whom? By their pals, the Russians. The Democrats are Putin puppets, not Trump. Again, projection. Section 2, the second article of impeachment must be rejected. The second article also fails on its face to state an impeachable offense. It does not allege any crime or violation of law whatsoever. To the contrary, the president's assertion of legitimate executive branch confidentiality interests grounded in this separation of powers cannot constitute obstruction of Congress. This is the obstruction of Congress article. I got them backwards. There's no such thing as obstruction of Congress. It doesn't exist. There's obstruction of justice, which is a crime under the law, which was not cited in this article of impeachment. They made up something called obstruction of Congress. What obstruction of Congress amounts to is we wanted to subpoena these people, but we thought that you would not let them answer the subpoena, and so we're going to impeach you because we don't want to go through the messy and time delay falderall involved in going to court. We have a constitutional remedy, take you to court. Yeah, we don't want to do that. We got to impeach, fast. Got to be done by Christmas. We got to impeach you by Christmas so we can go home and say, he's impeached. He's forever impeached. Remember, that's all that this is about, is them saying that President Trump is forever impeached. Well, guess what else President Trump is going to be? President Trump is going to be the first impeached president in history to be reelected. How about that, Nancy? Put that in your bullet pen and fire it into your mouth. Allegedly. Furthermore, the notion that President Trump obstructed Congress is absurd. President Trump acted with extraordinary and unprecedented transparency, italicized, because he's the most transparent president in history, not the most transparent president in history, who actually was the most obstructive and obstructive president in history. President Trump, he gives papers over. President Obama, he spends millions of dollars a year to keep all of his records sealed up tightly. President Trump acted with extraordinary and unprecedented transparency by declassifying and releasing the transcript of the July 25 call that is the heart of this matter. Now that, to my knowledge, has never been done before. And it actually sets a bad precedent, but it was necessary for him to do it. Okay, but now you've got foreign leaders saying, can I talk candidly with this guy? Not this guy meaning President Trump, but any president. Can I talk candidly to the president, or is he going to go and release the transcript? Should know that we asked if it was okay if we released the transcript first, and Zelensky said yes, because why not? There's nothing wrong with the call. Zelensky thought it was kind of an odd request, but he's like, yeah, if you need to, but why? I mean, we didn't talk about anything. There wasn't anything untoward in the transcript, so why do you need to release it? But if you want to, go ahead. And we needed to release it because exactly that. There was nothing untoward in the transcript, which is why Shifty Schiff, lying Schiffhead, human bobblehead, had to make up his version. Following the president's disclosure of the July 25 call transcript, House Democrats issued a series of unconstitutional subpoenas for documents and testimonies. They issued their subpoenas without a congressional vote and therefore without constitutional authority. They acted ultra vires. They sought testimony from a number of the president's closest advisors, despite the fact that, under long-standing bipartisan practice of prior administrations of both political parties and similarly long-standing guidance from the Department of Justice, those advisors are absolutely immune from compelled testimony before Congress related to their official duties. And they sought testimony disclosing the executive branch's confidential communications and internal decision-making processes on matters of foreign relations and national security, despite the well-established constitutional privileges and immunities protecting such information. See, now here we get to the nub of the Democrats saying, Trump is obstructing because he won't give us what we want. It's like, yeah, because you've got no right to ask for what you asked for. You don't get to ask for everything, and you don't get to piss and moan and throw a hissy fit if you don't get everything you asked for when you had no right to ask for what you asked for. As the Supreme Court has recognized, the president's constitutional authority to protect the confidentiality of executive branch information is at its apex, meaning it's the highest point in the field of foreign relations and national security. So that means if it relates to foreign relations or national security, the president has the highest level of privilege to keep that stuff confidential. House Democrats also barred the attendance of executive branch counsel at witness proceedings, thereby preventing the president from protecting important executive branch confidentiality interests. What the Democrats did in their impeachment inquiry was actually illegal. Notwithstanding these abuses, The Trump administration replied appropriately to those subpoenas and identified their constitutional defects. Tellingly, House Democrats did not seek to enforce these constitutionally defective subpoenas in court. Why? Because they knew they'd lose. To the contrary, when one subpoena recipient sought a declaratory judgment as to the validity of the subpoena, meaning he went into court saying, Your Honor, please rule that the subpoena is constitutionally invalid so that I don't have to answer it, House Democrats quickly withdrew the subpoena to prevent the court from issuing a ruling. Why? Because they knew they'd lose. The House may not usurp executive branch authority and may not bypass the Constitution's system of checks and balances. Asserting valid constitutional privileges and immunities cannot be an impeachable offense. The second article is therefore invalid and must be rejected. Section 3, conclusion. The Articles of Impeachment violate the Constitution. They are defective in their entirety. They are the product of invalid proceedings that flagrantly denied the president any due process rights. They rest on dangerous distortions of the Constitution that would do lasting damage to our structures of government. And again, talking directly to a lay audience here, this is so people who weren't paying attention during the impeachment investigation hearings, that shift show, in Nadler's Humpty Lumpty's Oompa Loompa like whatever that was. They weren't paying attention then. Now the seeds have been planted. It's like, oh, wait a second. I thought CBS, NBC, MSNBC, CNN said that the Democrats, that the evidence was overwhelming. And Chuck Schumer got on with grave, somber tones, said that the evidence was overwhelming. What do you mean they denied all his rights? What do you mean they didn't let him call witnesses? What do you mean they didn't let him have his lawyer there? What do you mean they didn't let the Republicans ask questions? In the first article, the House attempts to seize the president's power under Article 2 of the Constitution to determine foreign policy. In the second article, the House attempts to control and penalize the assertion of the executive branch's constitutional privileges while simultaneously seeking to destroy the framers' system of checks and balances. By approving these articles, the House violated our constitutional order, illegally abused its power of impeachment. Remember Jonathan Turley's great testimony? Yeah, there's abuse of power here. It's your abuse of power. And again, Turley's no Republican. He's no conservative. He's a left-wing law professor. George Washington. By approving these articles, the House violated our constitutional order, illegally abused its power of impeachment, and attempted to obstruct President Trump's ability to faithfully execute the duties of his office. They sought to undermine his authority under Article 2 of the Constitution, which vests the entirety of the executive power in a President of the United States of America. In order to preserve our constitutional structure of government, remember, because the Democrats say that they're the ones standing up for the Constitution, while they metaphorically treat it like a San Francisco sidewalk. In order to preserve our constitutional structure of government, to reject the poisonous partisanship that the framers warned against, to ensure one-party political impeachment vendettas do not become the new normal, and to vindicate the will of the American people, because remember, they hate us. He's just in the way. The Senate must reject both articles of impeachment. In the end, this entire process is nothing more than a dangerous attack on the American people themselves and their fundamental right to vote. Now, this was written by Pat Cipollone and Jay Sekulow. These are both two unbelievably intelligent, extremely talented, highly experienced lawyers who know how to write legal briefs, legal documents. They know how to use all the legal jargon. They know how to use all the legal phraseology. They specifically didn't in this answer because they wanted everyone in America to be able to read it and to understand it. I hope that you understand it a little better now that I've gone through it. Let me end with telling you what is in the rules package that the Senate passed. Remember Mitch? Remember Mitch the bitch? Remember, he's going to stab, he and Romney and Murkowski are going to stab Trump in the back. Yeah, well, Majority Leader McConnell instituted a kill switch into the rules. The Democrats try any shenanigans, the president's team and the Republicans have the right to immediately ask for a verdict, meaning stop the proceedings, take a vote right now, acquit or convict, or to ask for a dismissal. Now, here's how I see this all playing out. Nancy tried to take over the Senate. Mitch wasn't having any of that, okay? The Senate has a long and storied history of telling the House to go pound sand. And that is exactly why the founders gave us a bicameral legislature. Remember, the progressives, Teddy Kennedy led to Woodrow Wilson, led to the 17th Amendment. If I had three political wishes, they would be repeal of 17A, repeal of 16A, which funds the government via income tax, and to end the Fed. Why is repealing 17A so important? Because the House of Representatives is called the People's House for a reason. Representatives are supposed to be elected by we the people. And they only get 2-year terms because we change our minds all the time. The House is supposed to be responsive to the popular passions. The Senate is supposed to be more insulated from that, hence the 6-year term wherein only 1/3 of the Senate is up for re-election every other year, whereas the entire House is up for re-election every other year. So you could theoretically completely change your entire House of Representatives, but you can only change up to 1/3 of the Senate. Also, and this is where 17A got it so wrong. This is why 17A is so deleterious to the constitutional structure that the founders put into place. Senators were not supposed to be elected by the people. The Senate was supposed to represent the states. That's why each state gets 2 senators. And that's why the progressives hate it, because how can Rhode Island and North Dakota and Montana have as many senators as New York and Florida and California? Yeah, because that's exactly the way the founders wanted it. All states on an equal footing in the Senate. The House is based on population. So the House is proportional representation. The Senate is equal representation. The House is supposed to represent the people. The Senate was supposed to represent the states, but 17A took a wrecking ball to that. Having Jefferson, Madison, and Hamilton would be infuriated. They'd be shocked, appalled. They'd be infuriated to find out that we took the right to name the senators away from the states. Madison would be like, the whole idea of the bicameral legislature was for the people to have one house and for the states to have another house. What the hell are you doing having the people elect both? That's stupid. It is stupid. It also makes the Senate more responsive to the will of the people than the will of the states. The states actually lost their voice in Congress. And you can say, but Timbo, that's not representative government. Sure it is, because who elects the senators under the original framework? The state legislatures. Who elects the state legislators? The people. Ultimately, all power comes from us. See, that's what Democrats get backwards. They think they have power and they can control our lives. What they don't fundamentally understand is that all their power, as well as all their money, emanates from us. And we get to put limits on what they do. That's why the Bill of Rights, First Amendment, Congress shall pass no law infringing freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, freedom to peaceably assemble, freedom to petition the government. That's why the Second Amendment says shall not be infringed. That's why the Third Amendment says, yeah, no putting soldiers in people's houses. That's why the Fourth Amendment says, yeah, no going through our, rifling through our stuff without a search warrant. Okay? The Bill of Rights is not the government granting us rights. It's us telling the government what they cannot do. Because our rights come from God. Our rights don't come from government. Think about it. If the rights come from the government can take them away. Completely antithetical to what the Bill of Rights states. Just like Bernie with free education. You sure you want free education there, Sparky? Because let's say you want to major in material science. And the government comes in and says, yeah, no, you can't major in material science. We need some aeronautical engineers, so you got to study aeronautical engineering. But I don't want to be a gender studies major. Too bad. If you want free education, you got to be a gender studies major. If you want to pay for it yourself, you can do that. But, you know, we're not going to pay for it, says the government. Yeah, free education, we are. It's just another way for them to control us. So, Mitch, who some splody heads apparently don't trust, put a kill switch into the rules. Now, here's how I see this playing out. What are the goals of the impeachment trial here? Number one, to acquit Donald Trump. That's a foregone conclusion. There's no way they're going to get 67 senators. Removing him from office was never even a goal of the Democrats, so it shouldn't be a goal of the Republicans. Okay, that's completely off the table. Remember, the goal of the Democrats was solely so that they could say he was impeached forever. Nancy said it on all the talk shows. That's why they had the gleeful signing ceremony and took the pictures with the bullet pens. It was a big party day because now he's forever impeached. He's forever impeached. The real goal for the Republicans needs to be to make sure that history records that the Democrats abused their power, that the Democrats acted frivolously, that the Democrats acted ultra vires, that the Democrats acted unconstitutionally. So, how do you do that? You let the House managers come in and state their case. You open the trial, let the House managers state their case. Let them get all the ridiculous BS on the record, stating in grave tones that the president did all this, and this is serious, and now he's trashing the Constitution, and blah, 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 all their BS. Get it all on the record. And then you have a motion to dismiss for failure to state sufficient grounds to support articles of impeachment. You have a motion to dismiss to find the articles constitutionally invalid. You don't get into other testimony. You don't get into calling witnesses. You don't get into he said, she said. You don't get into any of this Lev Parnas BS. You know, did they learn nothing from Michael Cohen? Really? Lev Parnas? Democrats? Are you that stupid? So then the Senate takes a vote, finds the articles of impeachment constitutionally defective, and what that does is it puts a big, fat, juicy asterisk after the Democrats. He's impeached forever. He's impeached, asterisk, forever. Because we broke the law, violated the Constitution, and abused our power just to be able to say that. That's what the asterisk is for. You know, he's impeached, asterisk, because we violated the law, defied the Constitution, and abused our power just to be able to say that. That's how I see it going down. If it doesn't go down exactly like that, I believe it's going to go down very similarly. Okay? We shall see. Now, tomorrow, Doug Ducote is going to be boots on the ground in Virginia. He's going to be live streaming on his YouTube channel. I strongly suggest, I'm going to be sharing it when I see it on Patriot Uprising. I have a couple of his videos there now. I just posted tonight. You might want to check him out. But he will be live tomorrow in Richmond, Virginia. Should be a very interesting day. The Senate trial starts on Tuesday. I think this is going to be a great week for Patriots. That's all I've got for now. Until next time, God bless you. God bless these United States. Keep fighting the good fight.